Welcome to the last and final session at the Startup Thailand and Innovation Thailand Expo 2020. We'll take a look at how accelerators adapt and support AgTech food tech startups through COVID-19. We're very happy to be joined by three keynote speakers in this session. Mr. Sean Depana, Executive Vice President, Head of Corporate Innovation, APAC Plug and Play Tech Center. Mr. Lut Ramosberg, Program Director, STartLife from the Netherlands. Ms. Emma Koth, Managing Director, Rocket Seeder from Australia. And also we have a special moderator for the session, Kun Arapim Leung-on, Managing Partner of AimSpy Company Limited. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining. And I'd like to hand things over to our moderator.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the last session of Feed the World, Food Tech and AgTech Chapter. As you know, I'm RPM from AimSpy. I'll be a moderator for this session. AimSpy is an open innovation partner working with corporates and startups in many sectors, food tech and AgTech included. So I'm very excited to moderate this virtual panel discussion with those who have an in-depth experiences driving growth in food tech and AgTech. And our session today will be about how Accelerator supports startup after COVID-19 situation. And as we know that COVID-19 has brought the new normal to the world, especially the way we live and also the way we do business. Food tech and agriculture as well are affected. And some of the challenges, such as impact on food supply chain, food production, agriculture value chain disruption, have raised many questions on what's next. So it's a great opportunity to have the guest speakers from three international startup accelerators that play a significant role in driving food tech and AgTech startup ecosystem. And first of all, please introduce yourself, and we have about 5 minutes for you to introduce yourself and a brief introduction of your accelerator. Maybe we start from John.
Oh, good afternoon. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to the session over here. My name is Sean Depana. I head the corporate innovation strategy and investment across Asia Pacific. Plug and Play, it's is a renowned name in terms of one of the largest global innovation platform across 32 cities around the world. We are the first and foremost, the most active VC in Silicon Valley, and also one of the largest investors in well-known startups in Silicon Valley with Dropbox, PayPal, and Lending Club. And we invest typically around 200 plus in startup companies, agnostically across the industries. We cover innovation in over 17 different segments of industries. We are the largest corporate innovation platform with over 400 corporations, as well as we run over 55 acceleration programs annually. That's basically an overview of Plug and Play, but there's a lot more to it. We are in Thailand running programs in smart cities, and we just launched our food and AgTech vertical industry focus. We are planning to engage a lot of major food and agricultural companies in engaging them in the disruptive ideas coming out of technologies across the food value chain. And we're very excited about this.
All right, thank you, Sean. Being a global accelerator, I believe Plug and Play has had a lot of stories to share with us today because you work with across industry and with wide ranges of accelerator program, corporate innovation themes, and also investment portfolios. And our second speaker is from the Netherlands. It's very interesting that Netherlands is a small country, but it's the second largest exporter of agriculture in the world. And I believe Accelerator play a big role in supporting and strengthening the country's innovation pipeline. So let's get to know more about StartLife from Lut.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So welcome everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. So my name is Lut Ramosberg. I'm the program director at StartLife. StartLife is a foundation that supports very early phase food and ag startups in the Netherlands, but also all over Europe and all over the world in the end. And of course, we are indeed, what you're saying, a very tiny country. And we were forced a couple of 100 years back already to look at innovating because we were close to the sea. And that's what's forced us to innovate. And that's still the spirit that we have today. And what we do is three things. We offer some funding to these startups. We offer our network to them. And we offer direct business support. So we have a big network of corporate partners, program partners, investment partners that we support our startups with. We have a small fund. And we have, let's say, an accelerator program. And of course, COVID-19 has hit also our startups. And also in the end, we looked at like how can we still support startups in these days. And we turned the whole program online, which all of you are now used to doing Zooming, but in March and February, this was quite new for everyone. So also for us as an accelerator program. So yeah, more than happy to share some of the learnings that we have made in the past months on this.
Okay, thank you, Lut. And our next speaker, an accelerator from Australia, Rocket Seeder. And it's very challenging to accelerate the early stage startup, especially in AgTech and food tech. And I believe Rocket Seeder has done a fabulous job on that. So Emma, we'd like to hear from you.
Thank you. Yes, Emma Coe from Rocket Seeder. We're based in Melbourne in Australia. And we support early stage innovative startups. So they don't have to be tech-based, just innovative, something different about them. And in the agriculture and food space. So anywhere along the food and agriculture chain, we're happy to support if it's innovative. So we're a not-for-profit, so we don't take equity. We're a little bit smaller than Plug and Play. And we've been in operation for 3 years, which for Australia, for our ecosystem, which is still fairly less developed than the US ecosystem in general. 3 years is probably about the average. And we've supported 60 startups. We've just started our new program based in Melbourne today, but obviously it's online, virtual. We're under lockdown strict conditions at the moment, and in Melbourne in particular, not the rest of Australia. So we're only allowed out of our homes for 1 hour a day. But hopefully the restrictions will lift soon, so we can actually meet our cohort members face to face, which would be a nice treat. I'm also a director of an accelerator program called Grow in Singapore, which is a partnership with AgFunder, a VC that's based in San Francisco. And we're supported very generously by the Singapore government, Enterprise Singapore. And that's slightly different because it's an equity-based accelerator program where we source startups from around the world and scale-ups. And that's tech-based, so agri-food tech.
All right, thank you, Emma. Okay, we'll come back about how all of you support the startup afterwards. So now let's move on to today's topic. My first question will be about the impact of COVID-19 that accelerators are facing. Since accelerators are playing an important part in the startup ecosystem, but in the meantime, it's also business driven. How does Accelerator adapt or change to stay resilient and continuously support startups? Maybe Emma, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I think, it's obviously some startups have been affected more than others, particularly if they have food and beverage products. They've been supplying to the food service hospitality sector. So most of ours, obviously, because they've been through our alumni, they've been through our accelerator program, they're quite sort of agile and shown their resilience. And they were able to pivot very quickly and, go sort of direct to the consumer. But it's still very, I guess the general feeling in the community is because a lot of people have lost their jobs. Obviously, some people are dying now, which is really unfortunate. It's a tough environment to be in, and when you're starting a business, particularly a fast-moving business, if you like, that's stressful enough as it is, and then you have COVID on top of it, and having to work from home and not being able to meet customers, potential customers in real life. It's tough. But, I think it's about, I guess being positive. And from our point of view, we're very close to our alumni. So we've been having, we've had a few sessions with sort of guest speakers, and really it's about sort of getting around on Zoom and, talking about our challenges and how we've overcome them. And I think it sort of makes everyone feel better when they know that other people are going through the same thing, and we can sort of share tips and tricks and things like that. It's just staying in touch is very important. And obviously, looking after your sort of physical and mental health is important too.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't agree more that it's quite a tough situation for everyone, not just only the startup. Knowing that somebody that they are like somebody along by their side might make them feel better.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Loet, do you think, do you have anything to add on that?
Well, I can only agree with Emma that I think, especially in this phase, like that both Emma and me we're in, is about customer validation, right? So all of the companies that we work with, they have interesting and promising technologies, but they haven't identified the right market segments in most cases yet. And that's why they need to validate that with customers, and validating your proposition with customers through Zoom versus visiting a factory, visiting a farm is something totally different, of course. And there's a different trust level connected to that. So I think that's the main challenge that the startups faced. We pushed them even in our Accelerator program to reach out to 100 potential clients in 3 months. But it's just challenging, especially in these times when you're not allowed to get out of home. So I think that's the main challenge for the startups, and I couldn't agree more with Emma on that. Yeah,
right. What about you, Sean?
Well, thank you again for everybody's feedback. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to look at it from 3 angles, actually. First and foremost, so the first thing that we did during the pandemic, we just making sure that the safety of our employees, our partners, our corporations, and our startups are all taken into first considerations. We closed down our offices, and we did everything starting 6 months ago into going virtual. So that actually has been able to impact us better than even we're doing about over 1,200 events in person prior to pandemic. We just moved everything into virtual activity, meaning that no limitations on time zone and no flights and no jet lags. Everybody could basically dial in anytime. Of course, everybody has to work much harder, but the accessibility has just been increased amazingly for our 32 locations around the world. So I think that from a venture capital side of the business, as most of the investors pulled back and in terms of commitments on the funds, we actually accelerate our investments into the startups ecosystem, because we see that opportunity during the crisis. Many of these major transformation happened during the crisis. As an example, Airbnb became a major company and player during the financial crisis in 2008. As a result of many people and trying to subsidize their income, renting the homes, Airbnb just flourished. Same thing happened basically in Asia and Alibaba. When the SARS happened, everybody just went through the e-commerce. They didn't go out anymore. So these opportunities comes out. So we look for those opportunities as venture capital. As a kind of a corporate innovation platform, obviously, we've always been about connecting the best startup technologies to our corporate partners, meaning the opportunity of engaging them to get involved in the pilots, into commercializations. So the visibility for them is now more so, as our 400 plus corporate partners have a line of sight to many of these startups that we have in our ecosystems. And also, last but not the least, we started this innovation solution as a COVID-19 accelerator programs, meaning to identify the best technologies that applies in startup companies, areas of healthcare, and enterprise, retails, on finance. All of these areas are heavily impacted by the COVID and pandemic. So this is how we really see this ecosystem flourishing for us, at least. as we just try to preach and help all our corporate partners and startups to scale up.
All right. So it's not just only challenges that they are facing. There is the side of opportunities as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, which is very interesting. And what do you see as the most urgent issue that AgTech and food tech startups are facing under this crisis? And how does you provide support to overcome those issues? Maybe Sean?
Obviously, in the agricultural and food segments, I mean, as we look at all the value chain from the agricultural stage of indoor farming down to the distribution side of things. Obviously, with the shutdown, a lot of the challenges came down the lockdown. The workers, the migrant workers who were working on these fields had to go back. So the accessibility to producing their crops has been delayed. I mean, there was a lot of, supply chain issues that came about. Opportunities is those areas now is in startups who are able to apply automations, drone technologies, sending real-time data, to really engage this innovation track with many of these, farmers and communities and organizations. Increasing the digital usage, it's becoming the forefront of many of these traditional agricultural and technology companies in productions and also in distribution. So we really think that if companies have been always struggle, startups, to reach out to these companies, to convince them in a very traditional industry that's food and agri-tech. Now everything is fast-tracked and increases that engagement much better than before.
Right, okay. Emma, anything to add?
No, I guess just supporting that, and I was talking about direct to consumer before, and it's been really nice to see that a lot of farmers in Australia. We're a big farming nation, but very geographically dispersed, only 25 million people in a very big continent. But it's been nice to see some farmer friends of mine I guess pivoting and setting up a new business essentially and supplying direct to consumer, because yes, we've had trouble with our supermarkets and supply chains and bottlenecks and all sorts of things. So it's been hard to get groceries delivered to home because we're reliant in Australia on 2 major supermarkets. And when they stop delivering, then we have to get the product somewhere else. So some of the markets have stayed open, but people are hesitant with COVID to go out and about and be near people. So that's created opportunities for farmers to supply direct to consumer. Yeah, and the government in particular has been very supportive of that and has actually provided some funds and a platform for farmers to do that. So positive things can come out of negative situations.
Right, exactly. Lud?
Yeah, so I think that's indeed what we focus on. What are the structural effects of the COVID-19 pandemic? And for example, this morning I visited one of the biggest food service companies in the Netherlands, and who are actively working with startups. And they expect that about 30% of their food service business will, let's say, go down after a vaccine has been discovered. And that's a structural turnover decrease for let's say, the food service market. And that structurally affects all the startups who are active and in the food service market. So they have to look out for a new market, retail, online, and other platforms to sell their products. So that's an opportunity, but at the same time, there's a lot of startups that were like heavily focused on food service, so they have to pivot to another market, So I think that's one structural change, and the one I believe has let's say most effect is actually a one which is not connected directly to startups, but to the money that flows into startups. So I think if we can convince funds to invest outside their geographical scope in companies because they have learned how to do Zooming, I think that would be a very, very big upside for the market in general, and especially for high-tech startups. I think that would be a very, very big upside of the whole crisis. Because right now, still most of the funds are, let's say, very much geographically focused, and startups need to be like near their doorstep. And of course, not for all. Like Plug and Play, they're all over the world. So I think that's great, Sean. And I think also the move that Rocket Seeder and Grow and AgFunder are doing together, I think that's all great. But still, you see many funds that are only active in the Netherlands, for example.
If I may add, just basically the opportunity of being able to import and export a lot of these technology companies and get a visibility for them outside of the region. This is what our goal is to having a global footprint is really helps in terms of connecting them to some of the other areas to scale.
Exactly, and yeah, like what Sean was saying, the companies like Uber, WhatsApp, Instagram, they were all created in 2008, 2009, 2010. Yep. So imagine what's going to happen 2021, 22, 23. So this is the time to invest. And in about 10 years, we'll see if the investments were the right ones.
Hopefully 5 years.
Right. Well, since you touched a little bit on the funding, so I think my next question will be about the negative impact of startup valuation given COVID situation. And many startups are, I think, struggling through shortened runway while the valuation has been also lowered. So what would your recommendation for startups to survive through the crisis and deal with the valuation issue? Maybe Emma?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because we support early stage startups, and it's a little bit like Loot as well, where our startups, particularly in the Singapore Grow Accelerator, just raising pre-seed and seed rounds. So it hasn't really, because it's lower amounts of money, I haven't seen it affect the fundraising. So I think it would be more, and I've heard some VCs talking about lower valuations, perhaps by 30-40%. And, there's sort of lack of funding in the system, but actually I haven't seen that. But, I just continue to see, deals come through. Of course, the AgFunder newsletter, where you find out a lot about these deals. So they continue to come through. So from my perspective, I haven't seen, I guess, any negative impact yet. But I think it's early days. It might be a different story next year because there's always a lag effect impact on these sorts of things. So perhaps next year won't be so positive. Who knows?
Yeah. Hope so. Well, anything to add, Sean?
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned to you, we are fully active in our investment strategy with basically even more aggressive. In fact, in the month of June, we did 24 investments in just 1 month, which was incredible. We're seeing so many opportunities, obviously, in these companies. As you mentioned, Emma, that the runway for some of these startup early stage companies is very short. So they cannot afford, to miss much. And being in an ecosystem where they are able to, validate their technology and connect with the decision makers, as well as being able to raise money quickly, have to really come up with a very, very, they have to sometimes even pivot in their solution to make sure that reach out to the audiences that are really in the forefront of this change. The food safety areas are very, very strong areas right now, looking at the security of the food and, again, supply chain, food waste. These areas, if you have an application which can be pivoted, can be shifted, you got to consider that you have to be very much quickly change your directions of strategy. That way,
right. It sounds like actually the funding is not an issue, but the startup should pivot or find a way and find the opportunities that are existing after the COVID-19, right? And, Lut, any view on that?
Well, I would say to the start, at least what we tell the startups that are in our portfolio and to all the startups that are watching today, I think if you're looking to raise entrenched milestones, make sure that these milestones are conservative, because we don't know what's coming still. There's still many structural effects of the COVID-19 pandemic that are still unsure, or we don't know about it yet. So make sure if you are raising on these milestones, and in most cases you do, that you choose the right milestones that you can actually achieve, or that you can still defend once you move on to the next round of funding. So I think that's a takeaway that at least we suggest to some of our companies who are raising at the moment. And other than that, I think I join what Sean and Emma are saying.
All right, right. Well, it seems that we are talking a lot about opportunities that are arising because of COVID-19 as well. So will any new particular solutions or pain points that arise because of COVID-19 in agriculture and food sector that you think food tech and AgTech startups should tackle? Maybe we start with Emma?
Yeah, I think I agree with what Sean said before. I think solutions around food waste are going to be, well, they are very much at the forefront of people's mind. And I think, COVID, there's a lot of conversation around COVID is changing people's mindsets and making people think a little bit more about the future and, hopefully sustainability and climate change and things like that. And food waste, it comes into that conversation. I know another thing that's really popular in Australia at the moment is regenerative farming, and which is basically, soil health. So I think those sorts of things are going to become more popular.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Emma. Sean?
Two areas I really emphasized most. I think the food waste, 50% of the productions and crops fail, and quality of waste before it reaches even to the final destinations. So that is a very big areas that you can really focus on that. E-commerce, really building that last mile delivery solution. It is a very critical, that means still a lot of money is lost in that last mile. So these two areas, I think, are in the forefront of a lot of these new innovation and changes that we need to focus on. Not to mention, of course, all the other areas are important too, but I think these two are really where the money is being looked at, and by money being saved and improve the profitabilities.
All right, thanks. Louis?
Yeah, I mean, of course, there's some clear examples of sectors that will get more attention. I think one to add is, I think, automation in the primary sector, and especially because labor is getting more and more expensive, and also more and more difficult to export and import, so to say. I think you're not allowed to say that, but the transfer, like even bringing in workers from Eastern Europe, for example, to the Netherlands, or that was a huge challenge in the past months because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think there's still many processes in primary production that require manual labor that can be automated, and I think there's a huge opportunity for startups who are in this space. But as Sean is saying, like food quality, compliance, traceability, these are all domains and subdomains that are of interest and will continue to grow and rise. Yeah.
All right, thanks. And now let's focus a little bit on Southeast Asia. So what's your view on the outlook of food tech and AgTech startup after COVID-19 in Southeast Asia? Sean?
Well, it's the fastest growing region in the world. I would say that if you combine three major countries like Thailand, Indonesia, and Singapore combined together, you're talking about over 50-60% of the productions and investments in food in Asia Pacific region. So there is a lot of focus on sourcing the best innovations that within the farmers, and impact farming is really important. Organic farming, and quality of the food is being focused on so much more. Consumer behavior shifting on diets, things that basically we can see in Asia Pacific in the forefront of the most decision making in terms of expenditure. So I think startups are able to leverage those kind of technologies becomes very critical for us. And we always source for those companies who have the localizations of innovation, but the global expansion opportunities. And we help them to connect with those companies across the oceans, across the world, that have similar kind of interest and mindset.
Thank you. Emma, Anything to add to that?
Absolutely agree. I think Southeast Asia, countries in Southeast Asia were relatively unharmed, untouched by COVID compared to a lot of other countries around the world. And I think that will serve the region really well. However, they were still affected and they're still part of the world. And I think the opportunities for innovation and accessing technology, so the opportunities for startups within the region are also outside of the region. So yeah, I think where there's, as we were talking about, opportunity in food safety and food waste and things like that. So I think I see the future is very positive in Southeast Asia.
Okay, Luke.
Yeah, I would say one interesting thought that I would make is that, or at least I think is interesting, is that when you look at Southeast Asia, there's a very big out-of-home market, right? Like many people eat out of home, and I think food quality and compliance and traceability is getting more important overall the world, in the whole world. So I think that's one specific segment that will get more attention if you look at other markets, also in Southeast Asia. And of course, like adjusting to some of the trends that are going on all over the world. So the plant-based dairy trend is something to look at also for Southeast Asia, of course.
All right, thank you, everyone. Before we end our session today, well, is there anything that you'd like to add to food tech and AgTech startups, or maybe the message to organization, accelerators, investor, or maybe corporate sectors, government sector that are part of the ecosystem to support the startup? Sean, would you like to go first?
Sure. I really look forward to finding the best opportunities in countries like Thailand for best innovations, as there's a lot of the economies and governments have the initiatives for really pushing the innovation track on the food and agricultural side. So we are here simply because I want to find the next, unicorn and next opportunities out of these startups. So we are here to fund, we are here to help them scale, we are here to connect them to the right stakeholders. So definitely, I definitely look forward to scale our operations and expand and investments and bring the corporations to really understand what the innovation is all about, because they are basically at risk of losing a huge market share if they don't transform themselves digitally.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I hope we'll have the unicorn here too.
Yeah.
Okay, Lut, anything you'd like to share?
Well, I think, of course, hopefully soon we are able to travel again, and we are already preparing for that to make sure that we don't lose the opportunity to exchange knowledge and technology. So we're preparing right now together with the NIA and SpaceF program to bring some of the most promising Thai startups to the Netherlands and to bring some of the most promising Dutch startups to Thailand. So, I mean, I think it's important not to forget how important international trade is and exchange of knowledge. So that's definitely something that we look at also towards the future, even though we are maybe going to Zoom a little bit more. We're still, I think that's really, really important.
Thank you. What about Emma?
Oh, I'm really looking forward to getting back to Thailand myself. I have spent some time there in the past, and I love Thai people, and so that is something on Grove's radar to look at the Thai market. So the government is very supportive, and a lot of the large companies like CP Group are very much aligned to where we're going with our impact fund. And the alignment with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So that's definitely Thailand is a place that we would like to be.
All right. Yeah, I hope to see you here in Thailand too. Well, before we end the session, Lloyd, I think you have the video to show us about something, right? Would you like to play it?
Yeah, if we still have time, I would love to show, let's say, the pivot of our own Accelerator program as we turned fully to a virtual and digital program. So we have like a short after movie of that. So if we still have time, we'd love to show it.
welcome at the first digital edition of the graduation day of Start Life Accelerate.
Today we have the graduation of 9 promising food and AgTech startups who are graduating from a 3-month acceleration program where they not only validated their market but also prepared to raise a first round of investments.
The startup pitches are going to be a minute, and that's very short. In the first couple of sentences they should be able to say what they're doing.
When we combine real-time nutrient measurements with individual dosing instruments, we are able to control the irrigation water to the optimal nutrition level for the tomato plants.
We have the questions rolling into the chat right now.
We have developed a proprietary technology for the production of natural and cream ingredients from plant seeds. Including our ingredients in our customers' recipes, we produce dairy alternatives that will satisfy even the most skeptical consumer, and therefore produce the not so guilty pleasures of our future.
We think that people never get bored of startup pitches, but even though we decided to create an intermezzo between the startup pitches, we have a panel discussion on how the COVID-19 crisis will affect the food supply chain.
The first statement is COVID-19 will lead to the definite breakthrough for e-commerce in Europe.
Today we will also showcase one of our alumni. This is a startup who joined our program in the spring cohort of 2019, and they actually are about to launch a revolutionary idea on how a greenhouse will look like in, let's say, 2025.
After the session we will have virtual roundtables, we'll have a virtual meeting lounge, so people will be able to have those virtual talks and meet up in a more informal way.
So now this is the opportunity you all have been waiting for. You can apply for the next Start Life Accelerate program.
I think it's a great opportunity to be able to run in the Start Life Accelerate program. You are connected to a world-class university, a world-class ecosystem, fabulous corporates who are able to invest in our program, and our program partners facilitate any services that you need to accelerate your business.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, that's what have it's almost the end of our session. I have to thank you to say thank you to all of you for making the session very fruitful and filled with insights that are beneficial to all of us in the startup ecosystem. And I really appreciate the time that you've spent with us, and I'm sure that the audience learned a lot from your experiences. And thank you everyone to stay with us to the end. Hope you find the session useful and hope to see you all again. And now let's get back to the MC of the event.
Thank you very much to our moderator, RPM, and also thanks to our speakers, Mr. Sean, Mr. Lut, and Ms. Emma. Thank you so much once again. เอาละค่ะทั้งหมดนี้ก็คือเซสชั่นสุดท้ายนะคะของงาน Startup Thailand Innovation Thailand Expo 2020 นะคะก็มีเนื้อหาสาระดีๆตลอดทั้ง4วันนะคะณเวทีของฟอรัมก็หวังว่าทุกๆอย่างที่ท่านได้รับฟังมานั้นก็จะเป็นประโยชน์นะคะก็นำเทคโนโลยีนำนวัตกรรมต่างๆไปประยุกต์ไปปรับใช้นะคะให้เหมาะสมกับสถานการณ์แล้วก็เอาไปพัฒนาองค์กรของทุกท่านค่ะในนามของ NIA นะคะขอบคุณทุกท่านที่ติดตามและหวังว่าจะได้เจอกันใหม่นะคะในโอกาสต่อไปแต่พบกันแน่นอนค่ะในงาน Startup Thailand and Innovation Thailand Expo ปีหน้านะคะดิฉันชลพรรษานเวลาลากันไปแต่เพียงเท่านี้นะคะขอให้มีความสุขในช่วงวันหยุดยาวสวัสดีค่ะ